So I want to finish the check your understanding from topic 2.3. 3.2, excuse me, implicit differentiation. Okay. So right here, we have find the derivative of this. That's where we're going to start. Let's go ahead and blow that up and focus on, we're focusing on problems 2 and 3 and 4. So find the derivative of y prime, and I will be using, anytime I do implicit differentiation, I do not like to use the prime notation. So I will be using dy dx pretty exclusively as I do these, just so you're aware. So I'm going to take the derivative of 2y cubed, so that's going to be 2 times 3, which is 6, y to the second power times the derivative of y, which is dy dx, plus the derivative of 4x squared, which is 8x times the derivative of x, which is 1, minus the derivative of y, dy dx, which is equal to x to the 6th power. The derivative of that is x to the 6x to the 5th times the derivative of x. So notice I'm chain ruling the whole time. So the derivative of this, chain rule of the inside function, which is y, and the derivative of that, derivative of the inside, which is 1, derivative of that, dy dx, derivative of this, so on. So I've taken the derivative, but I need to gather dy dx on one side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean it up just a little bit, and we will use this to do our back. Let's do some more paper. Just keeping it all yellow. Okay, so I've got to clean it up just a little bit. Wow, that just does not want. It's too much yellow apparently. So I've got 6y squared dy dx plus 8x minus dy dx equals 6x to the 5th. So I'm just rewriting that. There we go. And so I'm going to collect my terms with dy dx on one side and my terms without dy dx on the other. So I need to move 8x to the other side of the equation. And so I have 6y squared dy dx minus dy dx equals 6x to the 5th minus 8x. Okay, we're going to factor out dy dx. 6y squared minus 1 equals 6x to the 5th minus 8x. Okay, and so dy dx is almost alone. We'll finish that up by dividing dy dx equals 6x to the 5th minus 8x. Other side divided by those parentheses, 6y squared minus 1. This is my answer. That is where I will stop working. So we've got to collect, factor out, and then divide. So one more time. We start by taking the derivative of each piece of the function. So of the expression, because it may or may not be a function. So we're going to try to avoid using the word function. So we've got the derivative of this, derivative of that, derivative, derivative, derivative. Gather all the things with dy dx on one side by removing any things that don't have dy dx to the other. So I'm gathering all the non-dy dx terms on one side and all the dx dy terms on the other. So we got that. You want to think about it, these are the dx terms. Okay. Then we factored out dy dx. That left me with 6x. Since that's negative dy dx, it's left me with negative 1. Then I divide it. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3. Write the equation of the tangent line at this point. So that's helpful. I'm going to use purple. And so take the derivative. 4x cubed times the derivative of x, which is 1, plus 2y times the derivative of y equals the derivative of 3, which is 0. Gathering, this is going to move to the other side. And so I'll have 2y dy dx equals, since this is positive, and on the other side it will be negative, and it's going with 1, so nothing happens. I'm going with 0. So there I am. I'm almost finished. Dy dx equals negative 4x cubed over 2y, which becomes negative 2x cubed over y. You don't need to simplify. I just did. It's hard for me not to. And so then I'm going to plug in. So I can find the slope. So I'm looking for the slope. So I need dy dx evaluated at 1 comma negative 2, square root of 2, which gives me negative 2 times 1 cubed over negative square root 2. So I've just replaced those into that. Clean it up just a little, just a tiny bit. The negative signs are going to cancel each out. I've got 2 times 1 to the 3rd power, that's just going to be 2. And the denominator is going to be square root of 2. So I have the slope, dy dx, at 1 comma negative radical 2 is equal to 2 over square root 2. So again, I went from this to that. It's a weird path, but kind of show that went over here. Negative signs cancel each other out. This is not the greatest color of green. Negative signs cancel each other out. 1 cubed is 1. So I just have 2 on the top. Denominator, same as what it was before, but now negative. So now that I have that, I'm writing the equation of my tangent line. And so I need y equals m, 2 over radical 2, x minus the x coordinate plus the y coordinate, and I'm finished. Let me do that in a different color. Okay, so I found my slope, had to find the derivative so I could find my plugged in there, then x, then y. Done. Okay. With these, they tend to give you both x and y because of how it's hard to find. Like if I gave you x and you had to figure out y, that'd be annoying. But if you think about it, 3 minus 1 is 2, take the square root, and they only want at that specific point, which is again why they do it, because there are 2 answers. They want this one, not at just x equals 1, because then there would be 2 equations. All right, multiple choice. If y equals the natural log of a mess, then the value of dy dx at the point 1, 0 is. So let's take the derivative, shall we? So derivative of natural log dy dx equals, the derivative of natural log is 1 over the argument times the derivative of the argument. So the derivative of that is 2x times derivative of x, which is 1, plus derivative of 2y, y squared is 2y dy dx, okay, so they've given me a point, and rather than trying to get dy dx alone, I'm going to go ahead and plug in this point, and I'll figure out what dy dx is in a minute. So plugging in point, we got 1, 0, so we got d, I'm just going to plug in. So I've got dy dx over here equals 1 over 1 squared plus 0 squared times 2 times 1 plus 2 times 0 times dy dx. And that one I don't need, because that's out of that, my derivative of it. And so there I am. Dy dx equals 1 over 1 squared plus 0 is just 1. Because 1 squared is 1, 0 squared is 0, 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 divided by 1 is 1, times 2. And then this, we got a 0 there. Anything times 0 is 0, even dy dx. Well, that goes away. And so I get 2. And D is my answer. So keep in mind when you're doing multiple choice, even though you think maybe you have to simplify more, sometimes you can get away with doing less. Because it was going to be hard to get dy dx along, but by plugging in, no big deal, because this part goes away. Okay, there you go. That's our CYU, the rest of our check your understanding for topic 3-2, and I'll see you guys soon.